global system upgrades. And just as a reminder, global system upgrades are the changes that get applied on upgrade day, and you don't have to do anything. They're just the way they are. So I guess one of the biggest changes that you will notice in this upgrade is the custom field naming restrictions. So for those of you who are doing any sort of configuration, we have now enforced field name restrictions. And what we mean by that is the new field name has to be alphanumeric characters only. No special characters will be allowed, as well as blank spaces. So this is, if you're wondering in sort of the use case or why we're doing this, it's a number of different reasons. Performance is one of the biggest issues, trying to parse out special characters and spaces and things like that in a field name can be quite difficult programmatically, as well as we're kind of being a bit more restrictive and more true to what's very common in programming languages. However, so you might be wondering, well, we have a lot of field names in the system with a lot of spaces, maybe have some special characters, things like that. We're not touching the existing fields. It's just for any new ones that you're going to create. So, for example, if I try to make a new custom field, maybe I just use a single line text box. If I go new field, okay, that's going to be no longer acceptable. If I try and save it, it says, no, you can't do it that way. However, you can put the field name as new field, all one word, or new underscore field. And then in the caption, you can put in whatever you like, including any special characters, whatever you may want, you can include that here. Okay, and that's what the caption is really for. The caption is the label that the end user will see on the screen, and the field name is a bit more restrictive, and that's what the system uses to do any of your equations or calculations and things of that nature. For the existing fields that you have in the system, everything is okay. We're not going to force you to update them. However, if I go into an existing field like this one, I can go ahead and click Save, which means I can still go in, I can make cosmetic changes. Maybe I want to relabel the display order or move my caption location around or change some of the options that are available here. We're not going to force you to rename it. However, if you do rename the field itself, so maybe field 1 updated, then it will force me to use the new restrictions into the field name. So to sum that up, basically if you leave the field alone, you're able to update it, recaption, modify the options as you wish. Going forward, any new custom fields will have to follow these new rules. Okay. We've also updated a lot of our configuration pages. In the sense we've just following the same line that we've been doing elsewhere in the system, using this left nav bar, tabbing out the different options here. We've also you may have noticed in the past, the advanced options, kind of just keeping front and center the most common set of tools, and upgrading the same navigation that you would have on the left-hand side here. Okay. Another option as well is the drag and drop reordering. So if I want to reorder the fields, for example, in the original way would be just to do something like this, and it would give me a set of numbers. Okay. But for several of our pages, what we've done is primarily for things like maybe statuses, for example. Maybe I want to reorder my status list, how it appears in the drop-down. When I select my reorder button, it's going to give me this little message on the screen saying drag and drop for the reorder. And then I can just highlight the entire row. You'll see my mouse flips over into like a hand. And then I can just drag and drop the columns and move them to where I want. And it will automatically renumber them to replace for the position that it's moving into. Okay? And this is a trend you'll see kind of going forward. We're trying to modernize the interface, even from a configuration point of view, using things like drag and drop and more modern tools. Great. Some other things that we've done is I think a lot of you who have built reports will appreciate this. If we go into our Neo report builder, we've now got an area where you can basically use, let me go here and edit my sample report. If I go into my report builder, for some of you who have a lot of custom fields, it was very hard to go into a data set and try and find the fields you were looking for. We always had the option to then narrow it down by either standard fields or custom fields. But what we've done here now is put in a search. So I can say ID, and it'll narrow down my search and help me find those fields that I'm looking for. For those who are building reports, hopefully you'll find it a little bit easier to find the fields and information that you're looking for. So that kind of sums up what we were defining as the major updates for the global changes. Some of the other minor changes that we've implemented in terms of the global changes here are things like this. We've added a new environment tab or label, if you want to call it, up at the top of your screen. So when you are in a system, let's say on your backup server or in a different environment, maybe you're on a dedicated server environment, you have several servers, we actually will display for you whether you're on production. Well, on production will look normal, but whenever you're in a non-production server, the system will tell you where you are. So for those of you who are used to doing configuration and you're always having to check the URL and say, oh, am I on backup? Am I making these changes on live? This should help you and assist you with that. There's a few other, again, I don't want to turn this into just me reading the wiki out to you, but there's a few other changes with regards to currency, rate services, just improvements there, skills matching interface. We've, again, modernized the look and feel. These are some older areas in the system that we've sort of brought up to speed and modernized with the new look and feel of Arcadia. So one of the bigger things as far as the minor upgrades go, if I just show you here, there is the ability to now sort your files. So if I go here and I have a bunch of files attached to my record, oh, where was my one I was using? Here we go. When we have a number of different files in our system, we can just sort them by the column heading. So you're going to have your file name search here, size, that's all available for you to sort by. So before these lists were locked in, and you couldn't, in the order that they were uploaded, that's how they were, but now you're able to sort by them. Another thing that we've also included is an advanced search in any of the lookups. So before it was limited to just the standard search where you can do a keyword, maybe pick a column, but now you can do a lot more searching. This is handy in particular for people or organization lookups where you may have large lists and you may need that flexibility of an advanced search to narrow down your results. All right, so this takes us into the on-demand system upgrades. So we have a whole bunch of changes that we've done for in order to handle the GDPR rules that are sort of coming in place in the EU. However, this does apply to anyone in the world really, and just gives you more flexibility within the system. Before I get into the set of feature sets that we've added for that, I did want to just show you one of the nice portal enhancements that we made. We've added a new, you may have heard me in the past saying, oh, we've got these templated themes where, where I've shown before, things like this. And we were referring to this as our white paper theme, where you have shortcuts, icons that aggregate numbers and results, and then charts and graphs. So we've added a new theme, and we're calling it website. And what it allows you to do is generate portals like this. So it lets you build more a website style. When you're logging in, you can do things like banner images. We can put text like here. And the shortcuts can actually include not only icons, but also images and buttons. So again, it allows you to build portals that look more in line with a website than maybe, let's say, a system. So we're seeing this as a nicer way to visualize or set up portals, making them nicer to use for your end users, such as the grantees maybe, or even for people who may not log in day to day and just need access to a few key things. They're able to set up portals in this nature as well. But it doesn't stop you from combining the two features, so we can still have our white paper style like we would see here with these type of icons like this, and then we can also set up what I'm showing you here, such as our preview for what we're calling a website style portal look and feel. Okay, let me close that, and I'll go back to my section here, and I'll show you some of the new privacy features that we've enabled into the system. So within here, we can create new fields. Okay, I've already done so here earlier, and it's using the same similar setup to a tooltip, but it's allowing you to identify to the end user that this data is being collected. Maybe it's personal information, so maybe you're asking for my date of birth, social security number, for example, or home address. So these are basically personally identifiable pieces of information. When I'm configuring the field, you'll see a new option down here that says classify as personal data. And this is again enabled to handle the new privacy regulations coming out in the European Union that allows me to identify to my constituents that, hey, we are collecting this information. It may be personally identifiable. Are you okay with that? And you can actually specify why you're collecting it. Maybe I need it to validate or do something. And that's as simple as just toggling on or off and defining what you want to say to the end user to let them know that that's what's happening. Okay, and then once that's manifested on the screen, the user can also at any time select. You'll notice a new icon in the top right-hand corner where they can select it, and it'll tell them every field on the form that has been flagged for personally identifiable information, and they can choose to review that there. Okay. This also ties into the new pages, such as when you're registering to sign up. So in the past, we were able to, on login, you could be presented with a, let's say, privacy policy splash page or an end user license agreement, let's say, where the user would then have to accept it before carrying forward. So we've modified that slightly so that you're able to present that at the time of registration. So if I want to register at the beginning, before I submit my my registration, I can be presented with the same information on login. So I can go to, let's say, my registration page here. I can log out, and then I can click register, okay, and then I can do whatever sort of registration point that I'd like, and then I could be presented with login information at this stage. So this would be allowing you to register or present your policies prior to registration, so that when the user logs in or before they even submit any of their information, they can decide whether or not to carry forward. Okay, so that's another enhancement to those policies and procedures. Okay, and that's just as simple as the policy pages that you would see. I'll show you here. What you would find here. So that's presenting this information, but handling it up front so I can decide whether or not to carry on. All of these are found under global settings, by the way, under the security tab, under privacy and security policies that allow you to create them. Either you can choose them as rich text, where you can manually update the copy, or you can refer to a URL in which maybe you want to direct them to a policy that you already have in place on your website. So you have the option to do either. And the system also logs these. Every time someone accepts it or moves forward, you will have an auditable track of every time they said yes. As part of all of the same settings, we've also created the ability to categorize your data and tie that into different policies. Part of that is data retention. Again, it's a little bit more than I want to get into in terms of configuration over a webinar format like this. What I would suggest is if you do have any concerns or the new legislation could affect you, we've set up an email address specifically, gdpr@smartsimple.com. You can forward your inquiries here. We can help you with your configuration to accommodate these changes. And within our global settings and security tab, we've implemented a lot of these options within the platform so that to be able to address these kind of rules and regulations. So, and this is true maybe even if it doesn't pertain to GDPR. You may have your own data retention policies where we can only, we only keep information for 7 years, for example, and after that, then we need to wipe it from the system. So this is all working towards those areas where you can accommodate those business requirements. The next thing is our impact measurement tool. We've made, we're calling it an impact framework, just allowing you to better visualize any information that you are gathering within the system and then using it to present visually in terms of impact. So what we've done here is we're able to define a set of calculations. So how we want to define what that impact is, whether it's costs, participation, regardless of what you want to use, and then taking that data and then plotting it on a quadrant type format. So you may have seen a chart like this before. So this is just a quick setup screen where you kind of pick what calculation you want to use, how you want to score the grants. Maybe you want to specify it to a particular set of grant types or status types. And then if I just give you a quick preview here, just simply take this information and then plot it into a quadrant. The way the quadrant's meant to work is sort of just to have your X and Y, one being cost. So in this particular example, higher cost is to the left, as well as impact going, more impact on the top. So this section here is the location that you want as you're getting the most impact for the least amount of cost, whereas this quadrant here would probably be the worst, meaning it's high cost but the least amount of impact. So again, it's just part of our suite of tools or part of our impact framework to help you visualize the data that you're capturing within the system. We ran a webinar on this earlier as well, specifically focusing on this thing. So if you have any more detailed questions on that, please reach out to us or take a look at the previously recorded webinar, which would give you a little bit more background knowledge on that. One of the neat things that we've done with this upgrade is two new custom field types, and we're calling it a question set builder. So the use case for this is it actually came out of the review process, typically for a review or maybe programs, where you may have you want to ask a different set of questions based on an individual level one. So it's not necessarily program wide, maybe it's just for this particular cycle or for an individual type of program that you're running, but it actually, to summarize, it allows you to build custom fields on the fly. And you don't have to be an administrator. So maybe you want to allow your program staff, and we're talking here in a grant format, You may want to allow your program staff to define their own questions that they want to then ask or present to the reviewers or people creating a report. So we have the ability to create a field type called a question builder. So when I go into my record here, I now have this special field where I can just use the plus button to ask whatever I want. So maybe I want to present the user with a single line text box, and I'll just call this question 1. Input your answer here, and I can make it mandatory or not. I can apply formatting to it. Maybe I want to make it a number. If it is a number, I can define the precision, and if it's a currency, I can define the currency type. And you can do things like this. They use the same type of formatting as you would build any custom field. So I can do options like this, and then I can save my question set. Once you've defined your, so this is me adding custom fields as an end user. I'm not in administrative mode. It's just another field type that I'm filling in. But what it allows me to do is if I go to create a new activity now, a new level 2, I've chosen to input my question here. And then when I create these new level 2s, it's going to prompt me with the questions. Okay, so in this case, I can ask as many of them as I want. Okay, oops, I did that wrong. That's my values. Okay, and then I could, every time I create a new level 2, it's going to prompt me to answer those questions. Yes, no, here's my answer. I can save this, and then I can carry on and go back to my level 1, create a new activity, and these questions will appear. So it's really giving the power down to the end user to define questions on the fly. You don't need to go into the back-end config, hide previously asked questions, re-add new custom fields, and deal with the administrative component of that. You get to set it up this way. So just to show a little bit of how this is put together, there's a new field type. Okay, so this is on I'm on a level 1 right now. It's called a special field type called question set builder. And the only thing you have to define is really where you want to place it on your form. And then you can put in instructions just to help the end user out. And then when you go into those level 2s that maybe we've just added here, okay, this then manifests as another field type called the answers, or the answer question set. Okay, so when you just define your question set and say this is where I want to manifest those ad hoc questions, you just have to pick and choose the source field. So I'm saying, oh, use that question set builder, the one I called questions, and place it here. So we're pretty happy with this new feature, and allows you to sort of create these dynamic questions on the fly on an ad hoc basis. You know, and I can ask different questions for a different level 1. So I was in my pretend grant here called education. If I go back to my my list of level 1s and I choose my community grant, you'll notice that these questions are blank. I haven't asked any ad hoc questions for this specific level 1. So I can go in here and create a whole other set of questions that I may want to ask for the reports or the reviews associated for this grant in my use case. So please reach out to me or support if you have any questions on how you can take advantage of this feature. We've kind of left it a little bit broad. It's fully functional, but we're open to any suggestions and to see how we can make improvements on it. The next piece I want to demonstrate for you is the use of instruction fields. So before, we had the ability to do instructions. As you know, we can do it on the custom field itself in its own little instruction box, or we can now have the ability to create instruction custom fields. We always could do that. We had these read-only fields that people could put messages in, but now we're able to flag them specifically as instructions. And what we've done here is added a new icon. You may have seen it with the little eye, but when I select it, it actually removes anything that's being flagged as an instruction. So the use case for this is where we saw this is, a lot of these labels and instructions are very handy when you're a first-time user, but as I become familiar with this system, they can get a little bit annoying having to see the instruction box all the time that takes up a good chunk of real estate on my screen. And it's like, yes, I know how to do this function. I don't need to see this all the time anymore. I'm a recurring user. But now we're kind of putting that into the end user's hands where I can toggle on or off the instructions that I want on the page. The way that manifests is, again, just in the custom field. The ones on the field, like I mentioned, they're the whatever you have in the instruction box. Okay, that will be applicable. Or you can create a whole new field now. We have a new field type called display instructions that is toggled in with that little icon to show or hide. And we've made it so that you can apply formatting and features like that, so you can kind of make them look a little nice. Otherwise, they'll use your default style and font that you have for your system. Perfect. So, made a few enhancements to some features that you may or may not be familiar with. In particular, are autoloaders. So for those who are importing data within the system, you used to have to run them one at a time, or, well, you still have to run them one at a time, but if you needed to, let's say, work with the same file over and over again, we'd have to create a special integration for you where, okay, run the first autoloader, then take the same file after it's been processed, put it into the second autoloader, and then do its thing. We can now sequence them, and you can choose to say, hey, I want this autoloader to run first, and then this autoloader to run second. So that way you can actually have a single file that you upload to a smart folder and have several autoloaders chained together to run in a particular sequence. We've released, in a previous upgrade, we had the ability to use OData links. For those who have not seen that feature, just as a recap, we're able to pull data from SmartSimple into third-party software. This is using, again, it's not necessarily SmartSimple technology. This is just technology that's available for any, a lot of software packages out there in the world today. But I can pull in my, let's say in this case, I'm using OData to link to a spreadsheet, for which then I can, use pivot tables and charts and graphs. And it's great for data visualization. I know some clients are using it to integrate with other visual tools like Tableau, for example, Crystal Reports. But this has always been pulling data in. We can now, we've included this OData communication protocol so that an autoloader can pull not only just a file that's been uploaded, but you can pull from an OData source. So instead of just sending the data out of SmartSimple, we're able to now also pull data into SmartSimple using that same technology. Those of you who are using reports, we're able to now export them on a schedule. So when we're running our file export, we can actually, instead of manually triggering them, I can go to a report, I can choose the frequency with which I want to generate exports. I can choose whether I want to send that exported file to a smart folder within the system, or even to an external source such as SFTP site that can be picked up later, and I can determine the date and time when this will start. So for those of you who are doing exports, maybe now I need to do my weekly whatever payment export, I can actually automate that. I don't have to manually click the button anymore. We've built that in. We made some improvements to some integration In terms of GuideStar, along the same lines, we integrated with Charity Check not too long ago. We can now, that was always on an on-demand ad hoc basis, but we can schedule those as well. Maybe you want to run them, on a scheduled basis monthly. You can schedule those. And we have a new integration in terms of watch lists. We were using a third party called CSI Web. We still are, but now we've also added support for LexisNexis. Okay, so you can include those as part of any of the watch lists or security checks that you want to be able to validate your organizations that you're dealing with in the system. A few improvements that we have added for Arcadia sections. So as you're seeing in portals, you have the ability to present a list view of items. So if I go here, for example, and I have my sections, right, I can have lists where I have a number of things being presented. What we can do now is have the ability to include a search box so that the end user can search within the results being presented. And we've also given people the ability to create a new button from those lists as well. So anytime you're in your portal and you have a new section, okay, so if I go into my area here and I'm going to build a new section, let's say I want it to be a list view, okay, and I'm going to pick from any list view from within the system. Maybe I'm going to do my, we'll do my default, and I'll save it. Oh, always remember to name your list views. Save. Now we can do things like this. So show the search panel, or we can do things and specify what criteria we want them to search on. So we can manifest the search panel for them and say, oh, we'll only let them maybe search the project title or maybe the funding amount or something like that. So that allows you to specify what you want them to be able to search on. We've also included little links like this that take you from the portal builder into the properties of the list view that you're looking at. So again, it's just helping to streamline the configuration of the system, make it easier for people to navigate instead of toggling between various sections of the configuration. I may be designing my portal, but I want to see what the list view is all about. I can now go in there and get the details of the list view, make my changes, save it, and I'm right back into my portal area here. We've also revamped the shortcuts, what we can do with them. So if we can specify now whether it's a icon, an aggregation that you saw, maybe I want to change it to use those images that we've shown you, things of that nature. So we can help you with things of that kind. When it comes to the shortcuts that are just links to another area of the system, there was always this URL box. So we always used to have to kind of know where you were linking to. But we've added this new URL lookup box that allows you to choose, well, where do you want to make a shortcut to? Oh, I need a shortcut to a report, or maybe I need a shortcut to my granting system. Once I'm there, it says, oh, okay, I want them to be able to create a new grant, or just show them the main list view. So we've been adding this in here, and we'll add more options in the future to what you can link to. But again, it's just helping you go from having to manually code these things into just using these lists or pickers or wizards, whatever you want to call them, to help you with your configuration. So that's part of the, I guess, the global upgrades and the on-demand section, so things you'd have to enable to take advantage of. There's a slew of other minor updates that we've done too. Again, just tidying up a lot of the config, putting, kind of standardizing some of the back-end pages, For those of you who weren't aware, one thing I do want to mention is we are able to use the Google API to grab the Google civic information is what they call it, but it allows you to pull information and details from each level of government. So this would be for the U.S. So for example, you could get the State Assembly, Senate, House of Representatives for your area, and you can we can use that API to then manifest and say, oh, if your grant or something is in this area, then your local representative is so-and-so. You know, some people are using that as part of their granting process. If you have any questions on how you can use that or what other people are using it for, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you decide if it's something you want to take advantage of within the system. And we have no beta previews this month, so that's may or may not be a good thing, depending on your point of view, but nothing to beta preview at this time. Always check out the notes for admins section on the wiki, as that is has a lot of little tidbits for people doing configuration work, just to kind of help you with some of maybe the tweaks or different areas that we may have updated for specifically for administrators. So please feel free to check that out. But I think at this stage, what I will do is maybe open up the floor for any questions. And anything come in?
Yes. So some few questions over here. So I'll start with this one first. Did any of the updates impact the Adobe Sign aspect of the system?
Nope, not that I'm aware of. If anything, nope, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Next one. Can we drag and drop the order of custom fields or just other things like statues, etc., etc.?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing, good question. That's an ongoing change. We've added it to things like the type, level 1 types, level 2 types, statuses for now. We are, also you can reorganize, I think, in the portal builder, but we, again, these backend config changes, we're starting to apply them a little bit per upgrade. But custom fields, yeah, that will be, right now it's still the numeric, like where we'll realign the numbers, but you'll be able to in the future then just drag and drop the positioning of those.
Okay. Another one over here. Can we provide a small demo on data retention?
Yes. So that's, yeah, and again, it gets pretty in-depth, so I didn't have the time for it today, but that's a great question. The data retention piece is pretty important, so we can give you a specific walkthrough on how to configure it, as well as walk through several use cases as well.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions? I think that's all we have for today. Okay, so before we wrap it up, I'd like to send a few reminders. Again, we have, okay, one second. Is it possible to have a small demo now if there's time?
Oh, I'm not prepared to. I can show you the screens, but
we can probably schedule one,
but yeah,
a personal demo for them.
Yeah, if we'll take your details and we can reach out to you and kind of give you a session on how that works.
Okay, right, perfect, and you're welcome. Okay, so just going back to the reminders, we're 1 week away from Block Party Chicago, June 7th. It will be hosted by the Crown Family Philanthropy. So register now so that you make sure that you have a seat for this event. And again, we also have other block parties and events scheduled throughout the year. We have Block Party New York City hosted by the Wallace Foundation, September 6th. Block Party Nashville, October 17th at the Sheraton Grand Nashville, and the biggest event of the year, Elevate 2018, October 17th to 19th at the Sheraton Grand Nashville. Again, we also have trade shows that we will be attending this month. We will be in DC for the International Grant Making Symposium, in Denver for the American Americans for the Arts on June 16th to the 18th. And in Toronto, we will be attending the 2018 Rotary International Convention. And we also have an advanced search and search filters webinar happening on June 19th and June 21st. So make sure you sign up for that. And again, thank you so much for attending this webinar. We hope you found this Upgrade Q&A webinar very useful and helpful. If any questions pop up along the way, Eric and the SmartSimple support team are always here to help. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.